This video will cover three subjects. The first will be why I agree with Veritas48 that the problem of suffering is an inadequate reason to dismiss the existence of a higher power. The second subject will be about why I feel that his argument for this position, which is that the finite mind of man cannot judge the infinite mind of God, works best when you limit this hypothesis of an infinite, omniscient God to the silent sort of omniscient God. Because once you bring these so-called divinely revealed texts into the picture, then the unscrutable ways of the divine become a bit too scrutable. And last, I'll discuss why I believe that any purely logical argument will have zero impact on the true believer. And this conclusion has a lot to do with the church services that I've been going to for the last month now. And my church experiences have been very positive, by the way. In Veritas48's video called Fat German Bastard and the Problem of Evil, Veritas argues that the human mind is too limited to comprehend an omniscient mind that understands the long-range consequences of every action. And I do agree with Veritas, at least in the sense that if we accept the premise that one, there is a creator, and two, this creator has an infinite mind, well then yes, it logically follows that our finite minds would not be fit to tell such a creator how to run the universe. I also feel that the problem of suffering is a poor argument against the existence of God, even if we leave out the premise about God being omniscient. Because to me, the most fundamental reasons for concluding that a higher power exists are the first cause and design arguments. And I say they're fundamental because these are two arguments that are just about every religion shares, at least to some extent. And the fact that suffering exists due to the very design of our world, that earthquakes and tornadoes are built-in features, and that violent killings are a precondition of the continuation of life. For example, cheetahs can survive only by chasing the terrified gazelle and then ripping its flesh apart. These features don't at all contradict the first cause argument, and they really don't contradict design either. So this is why when I'm asked to justify my own disbelief in a creator, I bring up reasons unrelated to the problem of suffering. But I discussed those reasons in my previous video response to Veritas on why I believe God's existence is more improbable than probable. So I won't repeat them here because I want to keep this as a single video and not make a whole video series out of it. I'll just post a link in the description box for anyone who's interested. All right, so I'll move on to the second subject, which is that I feel that this argument about non-omniscient humans being unfit to judge an omniscient God works best when this hypothetical omniscient God is a silent sort. Because once you make the triple claim that there is a creator, and he's omniscient, and he's written, or at least inspired, a book that tells us his will, then the argument becomes more difficult to defend, because now these explanations for suffering are out of the inscrutable clouds and have come down to earth, so to speak, and they're available for us to scrutinize. Now, if there were only one such holy text, and especially if that text appeared in some sort of supernatural format, like being written across the sky, or in some kind of read-only, floating and glowing text written in a universal language that all humans can understand, then I think we would have no choice but to say, well, I just have to accept and believe whatever this text says, because it obviously came from a source so much greater than myself. But of course, that's not the case. What we have is tens of thousands of claims of knowing the divine will, and they all come to us via very ordinary means, such as the handwritten word or even just oral tradition. Now, this touches upon the tangent topic of how we go about telling the difference between all those thousands of religions created by man versus that one religion that's authorized by God. And I have a video series on that called Using the Socratic Method with Christian Proselytizers, which I'll post a link to. But for this video, I'm just going to limit my scope to the claims that the Judeo-Christian Bible is that one book authorized by God, and this God is omniscient, and accordingly the explanations found for suffering in this book are backed by that authority of this omniscient wisdom. Yet, when we read the Bible, instead of finding explanations that transcend the cream of the crop of human intelligence, what we find are explanations quite typical that humans during ancient times had come up with. So let's start with the very first explanation for suffering, or at least for why women go through agony during childbirth and why men have to work so hard just to eat. According to the 3rd chapter of Genesis, it's because all humans are being punished for the disobedience of Adam and Eve, who let themselves be persuaded by, the talking snake to eat the forbidden fruit from the magic tree. And some Christian apologists will read Genesis 3, verse 17's line, cursed is the ground because of you. And say that phrase, cursed ground, also explains why there are tsunamis and tapeworms and why mosquitoes carry malaria. Now, as I see it, the story of pain being the result of punishment from a God who got so angry at a few select people that he cursed them and all their descendants is not something that transcends human capacity. But instead, this idea is common in ancient mythology. I mean, look at the ancient Greek explanation for suffering. Prometheus stole fire from the gods. Man accepted that stolen gift. So Zeus punishes not only those who committed the crime, but all their descendants by sending down a sealed jar of the earth's miseries. And he knew Pandora would open this jar. So there you go. This is why we have disease and famine and earthquakes and the like. So now the tale about Zeus and Prometheus has the same basic principles as the tale of Adam and Eve. Humans took something they didn't belong to them, and then a wrathful supernatural being issued a curse that's still ongoing after thousands of years, causing suffering not only to humans, but even to animals out in the wild that never have even come into contact with humans. Now, is it possible that the Bible was inspired by an omniscient mind, but God had it written in a way that makes it only look like it's similar to other ancient mythologies? Now, I'll admit, yes, that is possible, although the same argument could also apply to the defense of the scriptures of Hinduism and Islam and Mormonism and Zoroastrianism, etc. But I feel the most plausible explanation for why ancient scriptures reflect the mindset of ancient humans is because ancient humans were the sole authors of each and every one. Now, I know it would be grossly inaccurate to present the Adam and Eve tale as the Bible's sole explanation for suffering. And I do explore the Bible's additional reasons in my video series called The Problem of Suffering, the 7 supernatural explanations versus the 1 naturalistic. And I also have some video exchanges on the subject with the Christian YouTuber Epidemic 2020. And I'll post a link to those in the description box. One reason I won't go into those additional explanations for now has to do with my 3rd subject, which is even if I were able to present impeccably logical reasons for concluding that the Bible and all the other scriptures stem from nowhere but man's creativity and fears and wishful thinking, my feeling is that all purely cerebral arguments of this sort will have zero impact on the true believer. And I felt this way for some time, but my recent ritual of going to church every Sunday at the Brooklyn Tabernacle has reinforced this feeling tenfold. Now, the reason I've been going to church is that I'm doing research for my next book. But I've actually been enjoying the services, and this is partly because of the amazing Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, but I also like the sermons, and they've given me a close-up appreciation of what religion can offer in terms of having a powerful platform to discuss things like compassion and care for fellow humans. There's lots more to discuss on that subject, but my time is almost up, so I'll just say that when I'm amidst an exuberant, packed audience that's shouting amen and hallelujah, and they're reaching out to the sky, and they really feel the presence of what they feel is Jesus, and they have the sense of unconditional love coming from him and a tearful gratitude for his willingness to die for them, I can see why no philosophical argument can make a dent in an experience like that. Arguments about things like the Bible contradicting itself on what day Jesus rose, all that becomes petty when you feel that you have personal contact with and even unconditional personal love from the creator of the universe. So when people ask me if I expect my book, Dialogue with the Christian Proselytizer, or my videos to change a believer's mind, I have to admit I have no such expectations. Now, that doesn't mean I think discussions on skepticism are useless, because at least for me, I still see these discussions as beneficial for people falling into at least 3 categories. First, those who used to be firm believers, but are now experiencing the pain of cognitive dissonance as they see that their beliefs just don't match up with the world around them. Second, those who are already non-theists, but don't yet have their arguments well organized enough to defend their lack of theism. And that fits my own reason for writing Dialogue with the Christian Proselytizer. And last, non-theists who are already comfortable with their lack of belief, but are just interested in additional information and alternative approaches, which fits my current category, which is why I watch the videos of fellow skeptics like Prof. MTH and Qual Yesud, Soup and Evidence and Noel Plum 99 and all the other ones I subscribe to. But when it comes to true believers, I really don't expect to change anybody's mind. And in many cases, I wouldn't even if I could. Okay, thanks for watching.